And then after that, we started seeing each other.
I was 18.
Yes. And then you turn 19, that's when the exciting part happens, or happened. So we started dating, and then we weren't Christians at the time. We weren't Christians, we didn't know any better. And to cut the long story short, after our stories, like the boy meets the girl, the boy liked the girl, and the boy wanted the girl right now, and the boy and the girl got married, and how many months after? 5 months after, the boy and the girl had their first child, and it was a full-term baby. So you connect the dots, and you know our story. Okay? So that was our story. We, 2 years in the marriage, we were invited to a service like this, a Sunday service, and that Sunday we heard the gospel for the first time. Didn't know what we were getting into. We heard the gospel. In fact, the message scripture of that particular service was, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And it really, I was felt convicted because kahit na yung, we live a not very holy life, we try to be religious. I think that's the way it is. The more you practice things, the more you want to be religious because you want to compensate for all the things that you do that's not godly. And so we got convicted that particular Sunday. I responded to the altar call. I stood up when the pastor asked us to stand up for the altar call. And then when I looked at my side, I saw my wife also standing. And so that day we got saved. And at that particular Sunday, I remember that was our first Sunday in church. And my son, we brought our son, our 2-year-old son, that time. And I remember after the service, the children's church teacher walked up to us and told us, Mom, sir, anak niyo po ba si John? Yes. Nangagat po siya sa children's church kanina. So,
they were telling us, and then the teacher was trying to explain because we wanted the toy that the other kid has, and that the other kid was meant to borrow, so he bit the child. And it's like, we were
so we didn't want to come back to church anymore after that. Like those, the family, that's the parents of the kid that didn't want someone in the church. So anyway, you can imagine how messed up we were. We were messed up individually. We were messed up as a couple. Then, of course, we have a child who's following the same track. And so, I just want to, and then, that was the beginning of it. That was the beginning of, last Sunday we talked about sanctifying grace. And our story was just the grace of God in our lives. That apart from it, we would probably end up in a bad situation. Jenny and I were talking on our way here, and sabi natin, siguro iwalay na tayo kung hindi nangyari.
We would have been, and we were talking about why family matters earlier, right? We were just recalling how each of us, our own families have patterns of how we deal with conflicts. And we were bringing that into our marriage unknowingly. So whenever we would fight, I'll speak from my side, okay? Whenever we would fight, my family pattern is we pursue. We'll talk until we have out-talked ourselves. So even if we did not resolve a thing, we'll talk. So I would pursue, I would talk, and his pattern, their family pattern is they don't talk, they run away. So that's how
my dad would attack my mom and then retreat. Once he already said what he wanted to say, he would retreat, and my mom would end up talking to no one and frustrated about the whole setup, and things were never resolved. So that's the model I saw, that's the model that she saw. And so you combine those two things, somebody who pursues, somebody who retreats. And we never really got to anything. And then it's because, and a big part of that was we were both bringing into our marriage our own brokenness.
And we didn't like, we didn't do any better. We were just thinking we'll do our best. In fact, on the day of our wedding, Joel was telling me on the day of our wedding, he overheard his relatives who stayed over in their house, and they were saying, okay, he's 21 and she's 19, let's give them 5 years. After 5 years, this
Thank
is
God for relatives. So much for that. But anyway, yeah, I heard them, and they said, well, you know what? Hanggang 5 taon lang yan. And I remember saying to myself, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm gonna prove you wrong. But you know what? Even that was not enough. Our decisiveness, our resolve to make this thing work, will on our own will still never be gonna be enough. Apart from that, because we're all broken, and we bring that brokenness into the marriage. And so a lot of marital problems actually come from individual problems. And you look at your fights recently, you look at the disagreements or the struggles or the strife that you normally encounter in your marriage, and you trace it, and you can trace it to your own brokenness. You bring your selfishness in your marriage, you bring fear, you bring anger, you bring pride into your marriage, and that's individually. And so can you imagine two people bringing those things and together in marriage and trying to make it work? And so it's just difficult and impossible to make it work. Yes, you can probably last, your marriage can last, but it's just going to reach a certain point or a certain level that it will never reach a level where God intended it to be. And so that was our story. We met the Lord, we got discipled, and talking about sanctifying grace. We talk about saying no to this, saying no to ungodliness, and saying yes to what was that scripture last Sunday? Talking about saying yes to to purity and all those things. And you look at and we realize the sanctifying grace in our marriages is every day we make a decision to say yes to godliness and to say no to selfishness, to fear, to anger, to offense, to unforgiveness. We say no to that, and before you do it, you already reach a certain place where you look back and say, how in the world did we get here? And it's just the grace of God. So what we're saying is, again, we're just introducing this, and we're just saying is, God is part of your marriage, and apart from that, and sometimes we forget, we're going to talk about this once we hit that topic, but unfortunately, that's one of those things that we forget in marriage, is that God is the third partner in the marriage. And again, you look at your issues and you're trying to make it work, and it's just impossible, because the fact that you have issues in your marriages that you cannot resolve. Do you have any issues that you cannot, or maybe you've been over and over, it's like a cycle, it's like okay, I thought we talked about this already, but here it is again. It's just difficult to get out of it. But you know what? That's normal. It's normal because it shows you that's the part of God. He's the only one who can resolve that and fix that in your marriage. And so if you have issues in yourself and issues with God, it's a reminder to you that that's the part of God in your marriage. And only Him can fix it. And so it's normal if you have those issues. So that's a little bit of our story. God corrected that, and little by little, I'm thankful that we have people who have gone ahead of us in terms of showing how it is to treat your wife, to treat your husband, and how to raise up your children. I'm thankful with Pastor Steve. And we were young couples at the time, and we didn't know any better, but we're thankful that we have people and ahead of us. And you know what? you're blessed because you have people in your congregations who it's a lot easier to follow somebody rather than to rethink things or to think or to have no concept whatsoever of how to build marriage, and here you are, you're trying to figure it out. It's a lot easier, isn't it? If nakikita mo paano gawin, rather than trying to figure it out by yourself. All right. A few, well, not few, but many years ago, again, my children are already adults. And I remember many years ago, when they were still small kids, we were invited to a children's party, birthday party, and the parents of the celebrant actually owns Max Fried Chicken, right? you know them. And we were invited. Of course, obviously, at the end of the party, usually they give you loot bags, or what do you call that? Loot bags. Okay, so they were giving away. So I was watching from afar, and I saw all the children were lining up and being handed with this brown bag. And I was looking from afar, and I was like, I wonder what's in it. They're being handed with brown bags, paper bags, with holes, and so I figured there must be something alive in there. And so we, threw it off. As soon as my sons got their bags, they ran to us and opened the bags, and lo and behold, chicks, right? Obviously, Max Fried Chicken. So we had 3 chicks, because I had 3 boys. And so, to give you a little bit of background, we used to live in a small apartment. And the only open space that we have, okay, is this little square, maybe 8 of these box squares here. And that's usually where we do our laundry, that's usually where we hang our laundry, that's where we usually do our adult conversation with my wife whenever we're heated arguments. And so that was the only space. So going home, we were driving home, and I was thinking, paano natin ito uwi? Okay, so I thought, probably they're just gonna die tomorrow. So I said, okay, we'll take them home. How many of you have surprised you with, oh, you know what? Guess what I got you? I got your puppy. And you don't have any space, and you don't like pets. Right?
So when we got home, we had this laundry basket, the rattan basket that we use as a laundry basket. So the husband and I said, let's put these 3 chicks here and just leave it there in the open space. Probably in the morning it's there.
So we were just tomorrow they'll be dead.
Because our kids are excited, they were already talking. Okay, when are we gonna feed them up? We said, no, it's too late already. They don't eat late at night. So let's just leave them there. So tomorrow we check them.
So the kids were really small. I mean, there were small kids there.
So when we woke up, they were already awake.
That was the
They
first,
were like,
yeah.
Mama, they're hungry. They're hungry. You know how chicks are like.
And I don't know if I would rejoice that they're still alive, or oh my goodness, they're still alive.
Our kids were so excited, so we can't help but, oh yeah, you're right. So what are we gonna feed them, Mom? So they asked us again. I said, what are we gonna feed them?
So anyway, we fed them with leftover rice and hoping, again. So one day, then to another day. Days went to weeks, and now I have to go to buy feeds. Okay, because now from yellow feathers, now they're white feathers, so they're bigger now.
And then my kids had names for them already.
And then let's name them. So they became part of our family. So you can imagine every day I would wake up hoping that they're already dead and they're still alive. And so I I dreaded every morning seeing that they're still alive. And my kids are just, oh, let's play with them, let's keep them in our room, let's give them names, let's bathe them, whatever. So anyway, days went to weeks went to months, and they're still alive. And I regretted every meeting. I thought, anyway, at the end of the story, at the end of the, again, I just want to and I learned something from that brief experience. Okay. So that brief, it reminded me or showed me something that is in my heart. And for those of you pet lovers, Jay and Jeannie, you're pet lovers, please don't get offended, but I didn't have, the reason why I resented it, and the reason why I wasn't excited about seeing them grow up was because I didn't have any vision for those chicks. Alright? I didn't have any, it was on a day-to-day kind of thing. Okay, I hope they survive today, and then tomorrow will be another day, and we'll just figure out what will happen next tomorrow. And so I dreaded it, to be honest, because I had no vision. And it's you want to know what happened to the chicks? Well, what happened to the chicks was they became chicken, and they full-grown chicken. They fulfilled their destiny in life. I made sure that they fulfilled their destiny in life, which is they ended up really crispy. Well, I'm here to help you fulfill their destiny, so I did. So that was their destiny. They're not destined to become pets forever. I didn't intend to have a poultry farm, But the moral of the story is this: you will regret. And again, I was just with my children, and of course my grandchildren. And I see how challenging it is to raise up children, especially in the States. They have to bring their son to the daycare every morning, whether it's snowing or not. They'll have to bring him there because they both have to work. And it's not easy. And so, and more so to raise a family, more so to make a marriage work. The easiest thing to do is to just say, I'm done. I'm fed up with this. I'm tired, and I'm just gonna let go. And I've talked to people who wanted to get out of their marriage. They want to get out of the frying pan because it's just getting hot and it's getting uncomfortable, without realizing that they would only end up on the fire. And sometimes couples, they can't stand it anymore because it was just hard and it takes a lot to make that marriage work, and they want to get out of marriage without realizing that once you get out of that, you're setting yourself up for more misery in life. And when I was pastoring in Michigan, I had a member of our church. They moved from somewhere and they ended up in our church. And I remember they were going through divorce at the time, and we tried helping them, but they just couldn't work it out. They didn't want to work it out. And so, we were in the courtroom, and while we were waiting, we were there, and we were not watching, but we were just there sitting and witnessing some of the couples who were going through divorce, and how painful to see husband and wives who once said I do's to one another, pledged to be with them for the rest of their life, just ended up worse enemies. And the judge was presiding over who's going to take which car, who's going to have this property, the house, and all these things. And you know, to watch them, you would watch them and you'd see them, and they would. And I said to myself, if you just spend more room in the counseling room than in the courtroom, you probably would not end up here. But if you just, and you know, again, I encourage you to, if you get a chance, go and read and go and attend those court hearings, and you'll see how difficult it is. And it's going to make you think of, let's just work this out, because this is bad. This is really not easy. So anyway.
So the moral of the fried chicken story is really, if you don't have a vision for your family, then the easiest thing to do is to just give up. But that's why we're here tonight. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Why family matters. And I hope, if nothing at all, I hope that we would be able to leave with you a vision for your own family that comes from God Himself. Because if we look at the scripture, God doesn't marry. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Judges chapter 2, verse 10. This is a very sobering scripture. And here's what it says. And all that generation also were gathered to their fathers. And there arose another generation after them, who did not know the Lord or the work that He had done for Israel. And this is a sad truth in the history of Israel, where they saw the nation of Israel. We know them. We've read their stories, how they became a nation, and from a family to became a nation, and how the Lord took care of them, provided for them, did miracles left and right for them, and to end up in a place where one day that whole generation who got ahead of them was gone, and now what's left is a generation who neither knew the Lord or heard of the things that God has done. And it's sad because how many of you love your church? Okay? 10 of you. Alright? Some of you. Okay. And it's, there are a lot of, I hope that God has shown you so many great things. And not just in the church, but in your personal lives. But it's sad, how could it be that after seeing all these things, and after experiencing all these things, a generation followed who neither knew the Lord and knew His grace. And you know, that could be possible, even that can also happen to us. That we might be in a place in our spiritual life where we're so excited, we're committed, we're excited about, we're carrying the load of the ministry, we're ministering left and right in our victory group. But it is possible that the great experiences that you have right now, that you experience now, will go to waste, or something that cannot be passed on. It's possible that, yeah, you had a great time when you were a Christian, when you were, today, but it's possible that your children might not know that. It's possible that, how could that happen? We bring them to church, and they see, they go to kids' church, and they go to children's church, and they go to the youth group. How is that possible? It is very possible. And so I would like to share to you a few things. It's possible to lose all the grounds that we've gained. And here's the thing: we're not just called as a people to conquer the land. To plant churches in different places, to plant victory groups in different places. We're not just called to conquer the land. We're called to occupy the land. And it takes long vision. It takes long-term commitment. We will not be here when the grandchildren of my grandchildren will walk this earth. For sure. Okay? But I can be assured or I can do my best right now to make sure that the grandchildren of my grandchildren will still continue to walk with God by the grace of God. With what I do and how I invest my time and my energy and my resources to my children now. And hopefully to my grandchildren. Because I'm still going to be around. Hopefully I'm still going to be around for my great-grandchildren. But I won't be around forever. And we have this opportunity right now to touch the generations that will follow and to make sure that they don't end up in Judges 2:10. We have that opportunity to make sure that our churches will continue to flourish and plant more churches, where we can be part of making sure that the great things that we see now in our nation will continue to expand and grow, not just in this nation but beyond. And that a big part of that is how we take care of this. All right? So it's critical, that somebody said this, that each divorce is a death of a small civilization. And we're not just talking about two couples or a couple, two individuals who decided not to move on with life together and just separate them. It's going to affect them. I remember a story of this pastor. He told the story. He said there was this couple, these two, man and a woman, who are both married, okay, of course with their spouses, who got into a relationship and was confronted by this pastor. And the pastor told them, do you know what you're doing? Do you know that this is sin and this is, you're hurting not just you but the people around you? And they said, well, this is our lives. We want to, we just want to do what we want to do. And so this is just us. And so the pastor said, can I just ask you a favor? Can I meet with both of you in my office next week? And so they agreed. And so they came to the office, and they were surprised when they walked into the office of the pastor. In fact, the meeting was not done in the office, it was done in one of the function halls. And when they walked into the function hall, the parents of both sides were there, their spouses were there, their children were there, the friends of the people that, some of the people that they invited to their wedding were there, their friends from church were there, and they were all grieving and hurt because of that what happened to them, what they're doing. And the pastor simply stood them in front of the people like this. And he said, now tell me, is this just between the two of you? Or do you think all these people were hurt because of your selfishness and your decision? And obviously they said no. These people are all affected by it. Somebody was commented, what happened to Kobe Bryant, and somebody said this, that the impact of his life, how they were really, the impact of one's life can be measured by a lot of people didn't even know him personally, didn't know him personally, or them, father and son, but they were affected by it. What more to the people who knows? And so I'm trying to put in us today a sense of seriousness of what we're doing. This is not a program of the church. This is not like something that we could do once a month here together. We're talking about the generations that will follow you when you're not on this earth anymore. And how we can impact them depends a lot on how we live our lives individually, how we obey God and follow Him and submit to Him, but also how we live our lives as husband and wife, and how we take care of our children. So, why do we need to guard the families?
So why The first is because God has an original mandate. We see in Genesis 1:28, it says there, and God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth. So simply, we need to guard the families because God said so. It was God who said that it is through the families that we will be able to multiply, we will be able to subdue the earth, we will make disciples, and it starts and continues in the world. Sometimes as people of God, we're so gung-ho, sometimes we go into the world for the missions, and then we think of big radical things to do for God, and then we forget the everyday things like being kind, being generous, being patient, being forgiving in our own family, the people who are around us. So when God gave this mandate, He knew that the family is where it will all start. If you think about it, God could have chosen for us to be born, maybe we will just, sprout from the ground. But He chose that we will be born through parents. God chose that we will be born knowing that we have a father and a mother, that you know the term imprint. You know that the baby animals when they get first born, like if a bird is hatched from an egg, the very first moving object that they see, that's the one that they would copy. It's called imprinting. So that's why. And it's a very good picture of what's happening in a family. That's how God designed families. That the first people that would be able to imprint the lives of our kids are us, the parents. So that's how God designed it. So that's why it's important that we guard the families.
And it's God's original mandate. And God didn't just say, okay, go ahead and multiply and fill the earth. But He said subdue it and take dominion. It's one thing to multiply ourselves. I guess, we can all populate this earth. But it's another thing to be responsible for those who we bring here on earth. It's one thing to fill the earth, but it's another thing to take dominion. And to take dominion will take careful care. It will take diligence. It will take deliberate actions and training in order to make sure that the people that we bring on earth will take dominion of the land that God has given us. That means we need to take care of our children. It's not enough that we get to, and we always say this, that successful parenting comes from strong marriages. All right? It's just difficult to have, to build strong families if your marriage is not even in order. And it just continues on. And so taking dominion begins with us personally submitting ourselves to God. And together, working our marriages and working our differences. And we're going to talk more about marriage in the coming weeks, not coming months. But we just want to make sure that we know that this is not just our idea. It is God's mandate that we multiply and at the same time subdue the earth. This is it's not an option for us not to do this. Okay? Are you guys good? Alright. So, I just want to share 4 E's. Okay. I'm sure you're familiar with the 4 E's. But this is home edition. Alright, home edition. Okay, so first E is what? Okay, stop this. Thank you, Pastor Jay. Engage. All right. Engage. And we're saying that what Jenny says, that the first disciples that we have are our children. Our home is the incubator. Then it's important that we enter the world of our children. And we're going to talk about parenting. Okay, not today. But we're going to talk about parenting. But we need to enter the world of our children. Our children will not enter our world. We've got to find out how they breathe, how they think, what are the challenges that they face, what are they into now, what kind of games they play, what kind of music they listen to, who are their friends, what are the things that what the text in their cell phones. We've got to enter the world because they will not enter our world. And if we're talking about engage, then we need to engage them.
Connection is the key as far as engagement is concerned. The second E is what? Establish.
Again, this is introduction, okay? So I know there's just a lot of questions as we talk about this, but we're gonna talk about this. Don't worry. Okay, we'll talk about parenting, we'll talk about marriage, but we're just trying to give you an overview of what's yet to come.
So establishing spiritual foundations in our own children. That's just like what I mentioned earlier. Sometimes there are two extremes that we can sometimes go to. The other extreme is we could be so gumbo about the world missions that we forget what's happening at home. Or sometimes we're so absorbed at the family front that we forget that the family and marriage is not the end all that we know. We need to establish spiritual foundations. We need to establish lordship in the lives of our children. And those are two things. That's, as parents, if you're a parent here, there are two things that you constantly need to do as far as your children are concerned. Whatever age they are, you constantly need to make sure that there's God awareness and God submission. No matter what age, your children, God consciousness and God submission. So no matter what age, even up to now, my kids are 35, 31, and 27. Even at this age, whenever I would talk to them, they would tell me, oh, I'm having this issue at work. My first response is I want to know, where is God in this picture? Is my son even conscious that there is a God, that God's working through and into that situation? So it's God's consciousness and God's submission. Is my son being submissive? So I would ask questions. So, did you pray about it? What do you feel God's telling you to do? So it's like, still, God consciousness and God submission.
And the place that they learn that will be at home. The first question is, do your children see God's submission and God's consciousness in your life? The decisions that you make every day, are they based on because you're submitted to God and you're conscious about who God is? Because if those are two questions that we need to watch out. We don't have to watch out. Sometimes parents are so concerned about so many things about their children. Oh, we can't afford soccer lessons, we can't afford this and that. So they're apologetic about those things. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying sometimes we're watching the wrong things. But we as parents, we're talking about established, that those foundations of, is my children growing up submissive to God? And are they conscious of God? Do they live their lives with the fear of God? Alright? So, again, we're talking about okay, you look like you're overwhelmed. Okay, it's alright to be overwhelmed because this is just introduction. We will explain this. Okay. Meaning, we will go into details. Okay, we'll explain this as we go along. But we're just saying, we want to overwhelm you today because we want you to feel that this is important. We've got to do this. Nobody else will do this for your children.
Yeah, and if you have children here, I'm sure you have started to grasp how big the responsibility is to have children. And if we are honest, I hope you have also realized that there's a big gap between our responsibility and our ability. Because really, in reality, we cannot shield our children from the sinfulness of the world. And we cannot even shield them from our own brokenness. So knowing that, I hope that we would all be aware that parenting is impossible without God. So yun, so that's why we need to establish.
And establishing will take a lot of time. It will take time off from watching NBA games. It will take time from social media. It will take a lot of time to establish. Right? It takes long. Second, we equip. We got to train them, we got to teach them, we got to equip them, we got to give them instruction and discipline. We've got to plan, and it has to be delivered. So we need to equip them, but then we need to empower them. The goal of parenting, and this is what we're going to teach, is that we want to raise up our children to become mature. And what does mature means? They're physically mature, they're emotionally, they're financially mature, they're emotionally mature, they're spiritually mature. But with the hope that they become independent from us and dependent on God. Alright? If we just raise them up, independent, they're financially able, all those things, but they're not dependent on God. They may be independent from you, but they're not dependent on God, then we miss the point. Our goal as parents is to connect them to God, to make sure that our faith is being passed on to them. And it's something that they should see at home. So, first, a few things, and we're just going to. One, your home is the incubator for a healthy well-being. Your home is a place where your child knows or will learn who they are. I remember a famous teacher who said this. He said that I didn't know that I was fat until I went to school. Because again, kids could be cruel, but at home he wasn't branded. He was accepted. He was loved. He wasn't, And how many of you have been teased and who've been, said some things about, by your classmates or your friends. And so your home is a place where acceptance should be experienced by your children. It means I belong. They need to be affirmed that I'm lovable. It's a place where they need to be appreciated. That means they feel that they're valuable. It's a place where there's accountability, that I matter. And so whatever I do, it's important that they know. There's accountability, availability, that I'm important. Those 5 things are things, because it's an incubator, it's a place where your children need to learn that from, and that's from you. The first people that they should learn that from is you. Then the second, foundations and values are taught and formed. Scripture says that the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? What your children learn, the values, the convictions that they hold on and fight for, are things that they learn at home, that they will bring with them once they already left home. And again, that's what we should be watching. That's what we should make sure that they bring along with them when that time comes that they will have to leave home. We have to make sure that what are the convictions, what are the values, what do my children value? Do they value wealth more than God? Do they value fame more than integrity? Hard work or those things? We've got to make sure that these values are being formed and they're being taught intentionally at home. So your home is an incubator, it's a place, its values and foundations are taught and formed. And then the last one, it's the seeds of righteousness. It's a place where seeds of righteousness and holiness are planted.
So the family, in short, is like a school where all the things, where all righteousness and these seeds are all planted. And this is like Genesis 18:19 says, this is God talking to Abraham. He said, "For I have chosen him that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has promised him. So, all of this, God's righteousness and God's holiness is coursed through the family. When my kids were small, there's this thing that we would call, if you disobey mom and dad, God's blessing. So we would always tell them that, because really it's the family where God's holiness and righteousness are coursed through. And God's divine order on marriage and parenting makes sure that that's happening. So all these things are just teasers, and we hope to be able to talk more about that in the coming weeks.
You know what's interesting about that verse is a few verses before that, Jesus, our God, commanded them to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And our effectiveness as parents depends a lot on our own personal walk with God. And again, I'm thankful that we emphasize that in church. We value discipleship, we value lordship. But again, this was given with that first in mind. When God gave this command, He gave the command to love first our God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and to love our neighbors. And that means the only way that we can effectively do all these things is if we personally walk with God. And if that relationship is vibrant, growing, our children can tell. Our children can tell and will see and will know at home whether that the decisions that we make, what we value, every day, all those decisions tell our children what we value as parents. And so they're watching, we have smart children, and they see what's really important to mom and dad. Alright? I want to end with this. Some of you have heard this story. In 1924, I think we have a picture of Bill Havens. He was a member of the Olympic team, the canoeing team of the U.S. Olympic team, who's supposed to compete in the 1924 Summer Olympics in Paris, France. And one of the members of that team was Bill Havens. That was his lifetime dream. He'd been praying, he's been practicing, he sacrificed a lot of things, worked hard to make sure that he becomes part of that team, and then that team becomes part of that team will join the Olympics. And so the time came when, of course, 1924, the team was ready to go to France. In 1924, they didn't have supersonic jets yet. So to get to France will take weeks through ship. And so in his way on, as the day approaches, he found out another thing. He found out that his wife was pregnant a few months before. And he realized that they found out that his wife will give birth on the exact date that the Olympics will happen. And so now he had to make a choice. He had a dilemma. Should I go and fulfill my lifetime dream of being part of the Olympic team and compete in the Olympics? Or should I just stay home and watch my son born? And guess what he chose? He went to the team. No, he didn't. Well, he gave up his lifelong dream of competing in the Olympics because he wanted to be there when his son is born. And so fast forward, in 1954, 1955, 1952, there was another team, another Olympic team from the U.S., competed in the Olympics and they won. And when they won, the U.S. team won, one of the members wrote a letter, telegraph, and this is what the telegraph said. Dear Dad, thanks for waiting around for me to get born in 1924. I'm coming home with a gold medal you should have won. Your loving son, Frank. And that's the son of Bill. He missed the opportunity of his life to compete in the Olympics. He gave up his dream, only to realize later on that his son is the one who's going to fulfill that dream. He gave up. He chose what's more important. He chose his family more than fame, more than his lifelong dream. And true enough, his son was able to fulfill that. And I just want to encourage you. Sometimes you look at, maybe, again, we hope, there will be trade-offs in life. Again, I'm so thankful that we have the opportunity and privilege for my wife to stay home. And it's not for everyone. Please don't feel guilty if you're working mom. But it just so happened that for us, my wife stayed home. And when my children were growing up. And it was a simple life. Simple. It was a one-income household. We did get to, until now, we still don't own a house. We did get to buy the stuff that, sometimes my children will look at their friends and say, oh, Dad, did you get me that too? I said, okay, we never tell them that we can't afford it. We always tell them if God wants you to have that, then you'll have that. And we pray. And so, anyway, my point is this. There were days, and again, I remember there was a time that we were living in this apartment, and all we could feed them were boiled eggs and pancit canton. There were days that that's the only thing we could feed them. But you know what? We look back now, fast forward, and they're all adults. One's already married. They're all doing good in their careers. You know what? I'm thankful that we might not, we weren't able to buy them the best toys, or we weren't able to go to the best vacation places that some people did. But we're thankful that we have a family and we have a relationship with them until this point. That they still long for us to be around them, and they still want to be around us. That we have a relationship that they're pleading, God, dito ka lang kayo. They just stay here. My grandson is asking, Nana.
The night before we left, I told him, tomorrow when you wake up, Nana, you have an airplane, you will go to the Philippines, and you will make it fine. Why do you have to do that? And he helped me, and he said, Nana, stay with me. Just stay with me. And of course, that broke my heart. But also, I knew that life doesn't work that way. So he has to be. I said, Mom and Dad will be here. We'll be visiting you, and we could talk every day. And true enough, every time we talk, thank God for technology, he would say, Nana, when are you gonna come? Come here, Nana, come here. So anyway,
we have a very small video.
Very
To raise up our children, that incubator, one day they're gonna pursue their calling life, they're gonna have their own lives. And what a pity when that time comes and you don't have any relationship with children. It's a pity. Some children can't wait to leave home. Some parents can't wait for their children to leave home. It's sad. But we're not going to be that kind of people. We're going to be a people who will put God first and make sure that we raise up our children in a home where they're loved, accepted, that they have God consciousness and God submission, and they're going to grow up in a home where God is honored, and it continues on from their generation to the next generation, and so forth and so forth. And before you know it, real change will not happen. Real change in this nation will not happen through another president or through another infrastructure, another breakthrough in this and that. It will come from your homes, making sure that we raise up people who fear God and who would live their lives to the fullest because they know that there is the fear of God in them. They want to give God the best that they could possibly give to God. And so that's just our encouragement with you tonight, is that we have that opportunity, family matters, and we have that opportunity to meet that Lord. Amen?
Thank you, Pastor John. Let's all stand.